We continue with the talk about introduction to bioethics, the second part of it. We have dealt with medical ethics, with research ethics. Then we are going to talk about the animal bioethics, the environment bioethics, and the rules and declarations made in effect to that to regulate bioethics as well as medical ethics or professional ethics, as I said. So the vital question when we come to animal bioethics is whether all animals have a moral status and hence are members of the moral community enjoying moral protection, or whether they do not have at all, or to some degree for some animals, such as hare mammals, such as great apes, dolphins, and elephants. Do they have a moral concept at all to consider them or not? So people argue about this initially. What happened for the moral concept of the humankind as well as the animal? In antiquity, only men of a particular social status were part of the moral community. The higher people, the affluent people, the governing people, and their families, these have morals. As I have said, there is a class in between doing the service for them, and they are slaves. They don't have any moral. That was his, that was in the long history or in the past history in antiquity. This have changed, of course, to the extent that all men have moral status, irrespective of their social class, but women have to fight for several years after a long and hard social struggle for women to achieve equal status with men. That's unfortunate, but it was happening. And that equal status has been achieved now, being accepted morally everywhere, though in certain places we find still there is a discrimination against women, even though there is still a long way to go in many parts of most societies. An example we give is in the job market, equal pay for equal work. You will find that in some places, and there are not very many, fortunately, women are paid less than men, though they are having the or doing the same job. This is just a concept of morality in general in relation to humankind. When we come to the animals, animals should be part of the moral community. The idea that animals should be part of the moral community evolved in the context of the ethics of utilitarianism, utilitarians. In the 19th century, this is a school of philosophy, different from other schools. They say that you have to give benefit to every subject or every things. They argues, these utilitarians argue that it does not matter morally whether animals can reason, but rather whether they can suffer. Because humans can reason, animals may not reason, but they suffer. So they went into that argument. Following or in combination with that, animal rights groups founded in the USA, Europe, by virtue of a new awareness of sensitivity towards cruelty against animals, and a growing feeling of compassion for the suffering of animals in general. Current problems in animal bioethics are research on animals, including vivisection, that's to kill the animal while he's alive and to see the result of your research. Here, an example actually which was done by the Japanese Imperial Army and prisoners of war at that time in the Second World War, where they injected the prisoners with anthrax and plague, and they want to see the progress of the disease. And they dissect them while they are alive without any anesthesia, just to see the effect of the disease. So that's on humans, definitely not acceptable. Would you do it in animals? This is an issue to be discussed. Livestock farming and animal transport, xenotransplantation, non-human cells, tissues or organs used to treat human beings. Tissues from pigs have been used to treat human beings. Human-animal chimera, a person who has cells from two different sources, is still an issue. Meat eating versus vegetarianism. The legitimacy of zoos and circuses. The zoo, how legitimate is it? Does it at all looking into the animal bioethics to keep them in cages for people to look at them and enjoy themselves? Or is there a problem with it? So it's an issue. Circus also. The religious freedom versus animal protection. The recreational hunting. You just go in the wood and you hunt just because you enjoy it. Is it fair to kill those animals or not? It's an issue to be discussed. And the growing conflict between the protection of the environment and the animal welfare. God has made the environment very well balanced as far as plants, human beings, animals, whatever is there. So are we going to disturb this balance of the environment and the animals available within it, including, of course, human beings? Then we go to the fourth, the environmental ethics. Human beings are the only beings who are able to reason about the consequences of their actions, which may influence the whole or parts of nature in a positive or negative way. So they are only beings who can reason about an action they did. Will it influence the whole or in part positive or a negative way? Generally speaking, environmental ethics deals with the moral dimensions of the relationship between human beings and non-human nature. This non-human nature is a balance, moral dimensions, balanced between the relationship of the human beings and non-human beings. These are animal and plants, local population, natural resources, ecosystems, landscapes, the biosphere and the cosmos, the universe. So any issue you are going to do that affect this as a human being has to be balanced in an ethical way, and this is what we call environmental bioethics. And we have gave example of nuclear waste, water and pollution, water and air pollution, any others, which is a new development or which is a development which was existing ever since life started. We relate that to our behavior and what we do in the environment. The establishment of environmental ethics as an academic discipline dates back to 1970s, when issues of vital importance emerged, such as global threat to the natural basis of existence, growing number of extinct species. Certain species has more or less disappeared from our environment, and now they become very rare. Should we protect them? And we'll find that some people are protecting certain animals to make the environment equitable or to make the environment balanced. The destruction of ecosystem and natural resources, the more recognized dangers of technological inventions. These are nuclear power, including radioactive waste, what to do with it in the environment, its effect on the environment, how much of it is safe if it is leaked, or none of it is safe, then how to protect the environment from it. The new biotechnologies like genetic engineering, whether that's used for the human treatment or whether that is used in our consumable food. Now we are eating we are eating genetically uh, changed or dealt with food products using genetic engineering. So we go to human subject research. Humans have been participants in research since the earliest studies. Academic community has developed formal definition of the human subject research, largely in response to the abuses of the human subject. This is research. Now there is a definition. When you say human subject research, then we understand certain issues to be dealt with prior to the start of the research. In the United States federal guidelines, a human subject of research is the living, this is the definition, is the living individual about whom an investigator conducting research obtains data through intervention or interaction with the individual. Even if it is a questionnaire, you are getting data. Or identifiable private information. You are getting it from the subject of research. And that is the reference that gives you the definition of the human subject research. And accordingly, we have to protect that subject as we have seen in the balance earlier on. There are certain experiments or certain research protocols or projects which were done by researchers, but unfortunately, they tend to be crime against humanity. And those who did them were researchers, some of them were medical doctors, and yet they did those researches that turned out to be crime against humanity. Many of them, just about an example of 10 of them, but you can get more. The list is quite endless for crimes, for research being considered as non-ethical to the extent of being crime against humanity. The Nazi medical war crimes, we will deal with them in a minute. The Imperial Japanese Army Unit 731 human subject abuse in China. The Tuskegee syphilis study, we are going to deal with that. The Jewish chronic disease hospital study in New York. The Willowbrook study, USA. Thalidomide study worldwide. Then the Guatemalan use for sexually transmitted disease experiments. British Army abuse, the mustard gas. US Army abuse, Operation White Coat. Then surgical research wartime. So the list is long, but I'm just going to give you two examples. The one in red, the Nazi medical crimes. As you have seen, these are the subjects, real pictures of what has been done at that time. And the researchers were medical doctors in the German medical profession. In the Second World War, the Germany is against the Allied forces, as you know in history. They would like to do research that protects their soldiers, the German soldiers. One of those is that pilots are bombing the Allied, whether in France, in Russia, or in United Kingdom. But the Allied, sometimes they can shoot or they have shot certain aircrafts. After shooting the aircraft, the pilot will eject himself from the craft, and then he goes through space, through air, and eventually fall on the North Sea using his umbrella, of course, or the parachute, sorry, using the parachute. So accordingly, if he has fallen in the North Sea, which is almost ice most of the year, so he will be in a tank of ice or an ocean or a sea of ice, how long can he survive that? Not only that, while he is coming from the plane till he reaches the North here, how long could he survive that? So to do that, they did certain experiments on prisoners of war, put them on ice tanks, and to see after how long will they die. So the end point is death. That is just to find a way or a solution for protection of their pilots. Or they put them in tanks with very low oxygen and see also how long will they die. And these are just examples of what they do here. These are the freezing experiments, high altitude experiments, phosgene gas experiments. Phosgene is a chemical gas war used in the First World War, now trying to look into it. This is starvation, so many of these. The result in 1947, after the end of the Second World War, the Nazi were tried, and it's known as the Nuremberg Nazi doctors trial. They are scientists that they are put on trial for murder. They kill their subjects by subjecting them into the tanks of ice till they die, or other methods, other research products with them. That result in 15 of them were found guilty of the 23. 7 of the doctors were hanged. 5 were given life sentences, and other different sentences being given to them. So we go to that. The second is the Tuskegee syphilis study in Alabama. What is that? It started in 1932, continued for 40 years, till 1972. Till at that time, it was the media were informed about it by the New York Times. The experiment was going on for 40 years. The international community were not aware of it. The government prevent that positively. What is the Tuskegee syphilis trial? It is in Alabama, southern part of the United States, where almost 400 African Americans men with latent syphilis plus some control. They were followed for the natural course of the disease rather than receiving treatment, even after the treatment has been available, which is penicillin. So they continued, prevented them positively from having treatment to see the natural course of the disease. By the end of the study, or by the time the study was disclosed to the public and eventually stopped, 40 wives of those African Americans were infected, 19 children were born with congenital syphilis, and only 74 of them were still alive. The rest have died. Ethical problems with that? Inadequate disclosure of information. They did not tell the subjects or the patients who are having syphilis what they are doing. Not only that, they told them that what they are getting is treatment, the lumbar puncture or the spinal tap. So they told them that this is treatment, which of course not. And they are telling them that they are getting this treatment for free. The worse than that is the United States government actively prevented men from receiving penicillin. So the government authorities, somewhere they knew about the experiment, they prevent the penicillin to be given to them to see the natural course of syphilis. That continued till 1973, where the media disclosed the experiment and eventually stopped. So these and others experiments, so many of them, as I have just gave you 10, but more than that. October 2005, the General Assembly of the UNESCO adopted by acclamation the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. We'll come to that in a minute. Accepted And it is now the one would say, quote unquote, the Bible of research ethics. You have to go through it to see whether your research is ethical or not. Declaration anchors the principle and endorses in the rules that govern respect for human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms. We will see these freedoms in our talk next week, inshallah. The UNESCO Declaration generally, just in brief to see what it is, 28 articles divided into scope, aims, principles, application of the principles, promotion of the declarations, and final provisions. This is the UNESCO Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. Principles of it, human dignity and human rights. We have to cater for that. Benefit and harm has to be distributed when you are doing research. Autonomy and individual responsibility. It shouldn't be you are taking the consent on behalf of X or Y. In certain places, for example, in our country, when you are trying to do an operation on a woman, you get the consent from the male part of her, whether her husband, brother, or father. That's obviously not correct. The consent has to be taken from her, the woman. We are still fighting for that to make it applicable in your practice when you start to practice after graduation, inshallah. So autonomy and individual responsibility, the consent I talked about, persons without the capacity to consent, children, for example, who will make the consent for them. The respect for human vulnerability and personal dignity, vulnerable population, mentally disabled, for example, or prisoners or children who will have the authority to protect them. Privacy and confidentiality. When I'm a research subject, you have to take whatever you need from a research subject in a private way, and you keep the information confidential without giving it to anybody who is not concerned with them and who is not medically or ethically eligible to know the information. And equality, justice, and equity. We mentioned that. To go more on the principles, non-discrimination and non-stigmatization. Don't go and do your research in a poor community where they can accept if you give them a certain sort of reward. Non-discrimination, non-stigmatization, doing research on a community known for a particular disease is okay. Disclosing the information to others is a problem because you now stigmatize those people in that particular community. Respect for cultural diversity and pluralism, solidarity and cooperation, social responsibility and health, sharing of benefits, protecting future generations. So all these are the principles in the UNESCO Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights, and protection of the environment, the biosphere, and the biodiversity. So whatever we talked about in bioethics in general is now incorporated in what is known as the UNESCO Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. The applications are decision-making and addressing bioethical issues. Who is to make the decision? I talked about that. Ethics committee, any research institution has to have an ethics research committee that study the project of research or the protocol prior to the embarkment on it, before embarking on it, and decide whether that this protocol is ethical or not. And accordingly, they give the clearance or refuse it. Risk assessment and management, the risk of the protocol you are giving, and the transnational practices. And it's common now, research could be done in different countries, the same research. If it comes to country, if it comes from country A, which is a high income country, to country C or D, which is a low income country, is still all the rules of ethical applications in the protocol should be done into both countries and accepted, including the risks and benefit, including the harms, the distribution of the benefits, whether they are going to get it or not. As I have mentioned earlier on, what has been done in HIV/AIDS, where the research was done in Africa and poor countries, but eventually, when the drugs become available, they cannot afford to get it. The high-income countries who usually who has sponsored the research made use of the treatment while the subjects themselves were not able to do it. So that sort of problem or disproportion should be dealt with in transnational practices. The UNESCO created a body called the International Bioethics Committee, developed in 1993, composed of 36 independent experts from all regions and from different disciplines, all regions of the world, different disciplines. Disciplines were mainly medicine, genetics, law, and philosophy. This group follow progress in the life sciences and its application in order to ensure respect for human dignity and human rights. That's their job. Established in 1993 by Dr. Federico Mayor, the General Director of the UNESCO at that time. That body went on to create certain declarations. The International Bioethics Committee provides the only global forum for reflection in bioethics. What is their task? Promote reflection on the ethical and legal issues raised by research in the life sciences and their application. Encourage the exchange of ideas and information. Encourage action to heighten awareness among the general public, specialized groups, and public and private decision makers involved in bioethics. Promote, encourage, and cooperate. The international governmental and NGOs concerned by the issues raised in the field of bioethics, as well as with their national and regional bioethics committee and similar bodies within the nation or regional or international, to contribute to the dissemination of the principles set out in the UNESCO Declaration in the field of bioethics, and to the further examination of issues raised by their applications and by the evolution of new technologies in question. A new technology has developed or has been suggested should be subjected to this body, whether at the level of the national, the level of the regional, or the international level, so that they could approve or disapprove it from an ethical point of view. The IBC, International Bioethics Committee, made 3 declarations. Now they are governing our practice. The first one is the Universal Declaration on Human Genome and Human Rights, 1997. Second is the International Declaration of Human Genetic Data, 2003. Thirdly, the Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights, the one you have just mentioned earlier on in 2005. That's as far as the UNESCO or the international arena or the international world. What happens in our Islamic world? We have to know this. The Georgetown University School of Foreign Services in Qatar is developing an Islamic medical and scientific ethics database. An Islamic medical and scientific ethics database as an international information resource funded by the Qatar National Research Fund, started in 2009, and now informations are available for us. Issues addressed in the Islamic bioethics database include stem cell research, abortion, cloning, organ transplantation, and in vitro fertilization, test tube baby. So all these are addressed, which are new technologies now, internationally addressed. As far as we concerned as Muslim, the Islamic bioethics database, thanks to Qatar, they are addressing that. More than 400 writings were identified. These writings or research came from Iran, Kuwait, Egypt, and fatwas in the relevant topics from Saudi Arabia. These topics, whatever has been published from them in the Islamic world, has been summed up together to make the bioethics Islamic data. The sources are multidisciplinary and are drawn from a variety of fields, including Islamic law, medicine, science, sociology, and theology. So all these are and were involved in the Islamic bioethics database. The encyclopedia of it aims to serve as a reliable resource for Islamic ethical thought on the wide range of bioethical questions and dilemmas, which cover medical ethics, ethics in the life sciences and scientific research, and environmental ethics. The encyclopedia divided into two main parts, covering general conceptual framework and a number of thematic sections. General conception framework comprise a number of relevant topics drawn from Islamic law, theology, philosophical ethics, and ethics of science and technology. This is the conceptual framework. The thematic sections dealt with in this encyclopedia include a number of topics divided into several broad bioethical sections, such as the beginning of human life, human body, healthcare ethics, clinical ethics, reproduction, genetics, society, public health, vulnerable populations, research, and end of human life. All these were there. You can look at them and you find the details, what the Encyclopedia of Islamic Bioethics tells us about this situation, what to do in ethics. So that is general. I come to University of Khartoum, our Faculty of Medicine, what we have done in relation to bioethics in general and to ethics in particular. The University of Khartoum, in collaboration with the UNESCO, established a UNESCO chair in bioethics as it is Faculty of Medicine. And now it is there. You can find the building behind the library, just with the library facing Professor Daoud lecture hall, and you find the UNESCO chair of bioethics established and located there. What it says, this is just points from the agreement for you to know. The UNESCO shall endeavor to associate the University of Khartoum with activities of different chairs and inter-university networks participating in the program, especially in African region, and with the activities of similar chairs in other parts of the world. So the UNESCO will associate us with those chairs, African or worldwide. Also, the purpose of the chair shall be to promote an integrated system of research, training, information, and documentation in the field of bioethics, and that the chair has been done for the last few years, training researchers from different parts of the country, not only but sometimes from different parts of the world. We have trained some people coming from Africa, Uganda, coming even from Egypt. They are coming from different parts. We have done the training for them, and that is documented with the documentation we make to what we do. It will serve as a means of facilitating collaboration between high-level internationally recognized researchers and teaching staff of the University of Khartoum and other institutions in the Sudan and elsewhere, as well as in the African region, that has been successfully conducted, having the collaboration with all the universities within the Sudan and with so many international universities and research institutes. The objectives of it is to enhance research capabilities and capacity building to develop highly qualified human resources in the field of bioethics, as well as supervise appropriate continued training programs for the concerned governmental and private sector target groups. Has been successfully accomplished this objective. We trained so many researchers, different disciplines, not only medicine, different universities within the country, different research institutes, not even universities. All those have been trained on how to conduct research, what is bioethics, and the problem which I just gave you an introduction to. Enhance studies that analyze and integrate issues related to social, cultural, and legal implications of progress in the life sciences and provide access to knowledge and information in the field of bioethics in general, genetics and molecular biology in particular. We got a center, we got a unit, or we got an institute in the University of Khartoum who is dealing with genetics and molecular biology at the Faculty of Medicine, involving different faculties from the university, Faculty of Science, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, and the rest of it. That's located within the Faculty of Medicine, and the chair is collaborating with them and enhancing the interrelation and interchangeable ideas. Develop an up-to-date syllabus for bioethics education and undertake training activities at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels, utilizing regional and international experiences, particularly those included in the Global Ethics Observatory of the UNESCO and the UNESCO Core Course of Bioethics. So we are trying to develop a curriculum for bioethics. Now you are studying it at the Faculty of Medicine. We got our own curriculum. Part of it is bioethics. Then the rest of it you are having in this course Dr. Rande is running. And not only that, the Association of the Deans of Faculties of Medicine in the Sudan collaborated, or at least in conjunction actually, with the chair, trying to develop a syllabus for undergraduates to be included in the curriculum of each medical faculty, to establish a rapid and systematic mechanism for the acquisition, exchange, and dissemination of knowledge and information on bioethics, to target groups in the Sudan utilizing knowledge and experience gained by the global network of UNESCO chairs, UNITWINS, and the Global Ethics Observatory. And just one is proud that the Sudan UNESCO chair on bioethics is the first one in the Arabic world. We in Sudan started it, and then other countries in the Arab world have joined. So we started it early on in the 2010, I think. And after that, the other countries, Jordan, Egypt, made their chairs in bioethics. They are studying or dealing with bioethics before, but not sort of UNESCO chair. You are the first UNESCO chair in bioethics in the Arab world. It has to focus for the culture of bioethics, develop core curriculum on bioethics for undergraduates, disseminate knowledge, training in the bioethics field, develop postgraduate degree courses, collaborate with other UNESCO chairs in Sudan. We are disseminating the knowledge, and there is a website for the chair. You can find some information about it in the website. Unfortunately, the war crisis have really delayed our work and the continuation of what we should do. And it collaborates with governmental and private institutions concerned with bioethics. We collaborated with veterinarians, veterinary medicine, collaborated with agriculture, and we made a seminar about the genetically altered food, ethics about it, and other governmental institutes that deals with bioethics. This should be the last slide, and thank you very much for this talk. A lot of points has been raised into it, just as an introduction to enlighten you to be more interested into certain aspect of it. As you have seen, we have gone through so many points about it.